Robots. Robots are what men's dreams are made of. The helpful ones, the big, thick and hard ones, the pew-pew laser ones, the power armor thingy ones, the Pokemon wannabe ones. Then there are the collectible, customizable robots that allow you to mix and match a combination of different parts to create your own unique abomination. Isn't it lovely? Today it's time to talk about some more of those. That's right, it's time to talk about Biomotor Unitron, a turn-based RPG released in 1999 for the Neo Geo Pocket Color. It was published by SNK and developed by a company called Yume Kobo. While nowadays SNK is mostly known for their fighting games, namely the long-running series The King of Fighters, they also created hardware for arcades and at one point also dabbled in home consoles and handheld systems. In order to strengthen the selection of games available in their game systems, in 1996 they partnered with Takara, a toy company. The result was the establishment of Yume Kobo, whose name translates to Dream Factory. Their dreams ended 5 years later, however, after SNK went bankrupt. But that's not important right now. In a galaxy far, far away, there is a planet by the name of Elsia, home to many different countries engulfed in a brutal world war. One day, a giant space rock falls on the planet's largest continent, Tridus. This space rock, called the Unitus, scattered strange crystals all over the kingdom of Raphias. These crystals, called Unitrons, contained unlimited amounts of energy. Using them as an energy source, the clever people of Raphias created the Unitrons, humanoid robot soldiers. With their new weapon, the kingdom was victorious and an age of peace began. 199 years later, Unitrons are no longer seen as a tool of war, but as a general-purpose machine. Every year, Unitron masters from all over the world gather in Raphias to compete in a dueling tournament. The winner earns fame, glory and the title of Master of Masters, or MOM for short. You play as a rookie, either a male or female of 5 different races. You have your standard humans, some tree huggers, some lizards, some fish and Zelda. You get the opposite gender of your respective race as your partner, and unfortunately you can't mix and match. If you want a cute bird or fish girl, you have to play as these dorks. Regardless of your choice, the story and dialogue remains the same. Your objective is to climb through the arena's ranks until you're at the top of the world. But before you can start doing that, you're sent to take a look around the city and introduce yourself to the colorful cast of characters who live in it. It's not going to win any awards, but the game has a likable cast of characters who have their own little stories, thoughts on the plot developments and change a bit as the story progresses. The plot itself isn't very interesting though. The vast majority of the game is spent training, upgrading your equipment and climbing through the ranks. It's only in the last stretch that something different happens and an ancient evil awakens. Depending on which race you play as, you start with a couple of different parts. The focus of the game is customizing your Unitron's equipment and turning it into the leanest, meanest killing machinist possible. And holy grinding crap, there are a ton of parts to choose from. You can buy a few basic weapons at the shop, but the vast majority has to be crafted. You do this by picking a base weapon, the material and optionally a tool, which improves the chances of successfully crafting a weapon. Low rank weapons have high success rates, so most likely you won't even need a tool, but for the strongest weapons don't even bother unless you have a 100% success tool, because you lose both the base weapon and the material. Or you can just save scum, I guess. As you develop more weapons, your partner gains experience points and levels up, slightly raising their chance to not royally muck up your hard-earned materials. At specific levels, they also upgrade the Unitron's body, giving it a new appearance and a small stat boost. It's a shame, however, that you can't craft any other type of parts. You have cores, which determine how many energy points you have in battle, backpacks and legs, which modify your HP, defense, accuracy and movement stats, and finally you have accessories, which provide a variety of effects. These can only be bought at the shop, found in dungeons, or acquired through special means. The equipment interface could really use some heavy reworking though. When equipping parts, there's no comparison with what you're currently using. You need to manually scroll between the two parts to know which one has the stats you're looking for, which is unnecessarily annoying when there are so many parts to choose from. Battles are a standard, simple turn-based affair. You pick one of your weapons to use and fight until either you or the enemy falls over. Your Unitron's elemental affinity is determined by which race you pick at the start. There are 8 elements in total, each with their weakness and resistance. Each weapon has its own element, so you want to have different elements on each arm. Using a weapon costs energy points, or EP for short. Naturally, the strongest weapons cost more EP, so a more capable core will help you not be a sitting duck once it runs out. You do have the option to charge up a small amount of EP during your turn though. You can also use some items or escape non-event battles. While the basic gameplay is serviceable, it constantly jumps between being too easy and too hard. At the start, you can either head for the arena right away or spend some time preparing. If you do the former, it's actually not very hard, which is kind of underwhelming. If you don't, you'll likely think of visiting the shop for equipment. You start with only 500 gold, and Unitron equipment costs much more than that. Guess it's time to take a trip to the dungeons. There are 4 dungeons available, each associated with one of the elements. They all have 7 floors, and every time you enter them, the game picks from several pre-made layouts at random and fills the chests with random loot. The first floor poses no challenge, so let's gather some treasure. 10 minutes later, you have several times more money than you had at the start. You go back to town, upgrade your equipment, go back to the arena, and completely demolish the opposition. They can barely scratch your Unitron. Go back to the dungeon, clear the first 3 floors without any challenge, go back to town, upgrade your equipment again, challenge the next rank, and completely demolish the opposition. Again. Repeat the process, try the next rank, and completely demolish the opposition. Repeat and completely demolish the opposition. Feeling invincible yet? Okay, the first 6 floors of the dungeons are a piece of cake. Let's hurry up with the last one and get it done. Alright then. It sort of feels like the game just won't let you progress unless your stats are at a certain level, but then it throws it down the toilet and gives you all the tools you need to not only surpass every challenge, but also steamroll it without a problem. It almost never feels like the difficulty is at the right point, just either too hard or too easy. Another thing I have to point out is that, sadly, the music is kind of bad. Look, I love 8-bit music, but Unitron's soundtrack varies between mediocre and 8-bit vomit. The workshop theme, for example, has this annoying beeping going on. The regular battle theme sounds rather chaotic, and not in a good way. It's hard for me to explain. Maybe it's the instrumentation. Still, despite its flaws, Biomotor Unitron is quite the fun little game. Its simple structure makes it easy to pick up and play, and while it's not exceptionally long for an RPG, it has enough replay value to be worth a second or even third playthrough. Work hard, study your equipment and material, forge new weapons and overcome whatever challenges you face. One day, for sure, you and the people of Tridus will find eternal peace and live happily ever after. Until it all blows up in the sequel.